Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journeys, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2024. And that brings us to a title which has been designated by Criterion at SPY number 1244. And this is a work which is described as being from the year 1987. And the name of the filmmaker is Sammo Hung. And the name of the work is, and please pardon me for my very terrible pronunciation of the Cantonese language. I hope you can forgive me. It's very bad. I apologize profusely. But the name of the work is Dongfang Tukying, or as it's known in English, Eastern Condors. This is the work, the really great action-adventure martial arts war film epic from the one and the only, the fantastic artist, filmmaker, artist extraordinaire, Sammo Hung. And he is the director of this work with executive producer Raymond Chow of Golden Harvest, under the auspices of Golden Harvest and production, Boha Productions. And then we have the great cast, included in which are, for example, Sammo Hung and Yuan Biu, and Joyce Godenzi, and Yuan Hua, and Yuan Woping, and Corey Yun, and Han Yor, and so many others. This is such a great cast, and it's such a great ensemble, really befitting the plot and story of this, the whole setup of this, which is, and again, please, I'm so sorry for my terrible pronunciation. I hope you can forgive me, but Dongfang Tukying, or as it's known in English, Eastern Condors. So this is great. Another Hong Kong action film makes it into the physical media catalog of the Criterion Collection. And not only that, a Sammo Hung film as well. I mean, we had, for example, in the physical media context of Criterion, we've had, for instance, the vehicle My Lucky Stars, as it's known in English, as part of the Jackie Chan Emergence of a Superstar set from several months back. Also, Sammo Hung has appeared in a number of great martial arts films. For instance, a very memorable appearance early on in sort of the pre-title sequence of work, which from the early 1970s, which is called Enter the Dragon, which is part of a set of films revolving around Bruce Lee, and others. And so, Sammo Hung, an extraordinary talent, and it's just a wide range of stunt choreography prowess, with a great background in picking opera and martial arts, and also a wonderful sensibility in terms of setting up action and set pieces, as well as being able to pace the film so effectively so as to have the film tell a very gripping story. And I think those traits and then some are ever present in this work, which is, again, described as being from the year 1987, Eastern Condors. So Eastern Condors, right? It's a war film epic that is, at times, there are light touches to it in terms of a certain comedic value, but on the whole, one can say that it is quite a seriously toned film. It is a rugged action film. I suppose one way to describe it would be something like, maybe other films that come to mind, and I'm sure that has been part of the equation and consideration upon the contemplation and planning of the work Eastern Condors, because there are a lot of films that come to mind. For instance, the Dirty Dozen. So it's like the Dirty Dozen meets the Deer Hunter. There's some aspects of Platoon. There's some aspects of Rambo First Blood Part 2, and and the like. And so, and also another work, Boat People, which is also in the Criterion Collection, by the way, from a year or so ago, and others. So this is a work which is focusing in, if we were to try to focus on the plot or story structure of Eastern Condors, I mean, it focuses in on a um, a plan which is sort of behind the scenes sponsored by U.S. military forces to essentially hire prisoners, convicts who essentially have nothing to lose. But they are hired, and Sammo Hung and others are hired to go into Vietnam and in order to hunt down or find a location of military grade weapons that seems to be hidden away somewhere in the country, and so they have to find it before the forces of the Viet Cong find it and perhaps use it against U.S. Military interests. And so this band of this band of say well, maybe band of misfits might be one way of putting it, but they are very well trained and they are very well composed. But it's a group of heroes or anti-heroes go behind, quote unquote, they go behind the lines and into this territory in order to try to find this stash of weapons before they are beaten to the task. And along the way, they meet they enter or they engage with a lot of action, a lot of gunfire, and a lot of knife and a lot of attacks and defense, and there's a lot of bloodshed in this, a lot of violence, a lot of hand-to-hand combat, as well as a lot of gunfire as well. And that's part of the action adventure martial arts set piece, because and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into some of the contours of the supplements. But also along the way, when they are quote unquote behind enemy lines unquote, they also encounter some villagers. They encounter a village community and also a group of Cambodian guerrillas portrayed amongst them, Joyce Godenzi, and they also have their own, say, maybe mission that might end in death for all concerned. I mean, this is a very high stakes mission, and perhaps the chances of survival for everyone concerned is very, very low, close to nil, if at all. But there's also some uneasy alliances that are forged along the way with a number of guerrilla fighters that are also part of the fold, and they join forces to try to locate the weapons and also try to withstand the forces that are constantly on the hunt and constantly on the attack. And there's in particular in playing on one of the antagonists, a very memorable performance by Yuan Hua, who is the general or the giggling general. And we'll talk a little bit about Yuan Hua's performance when we get to one of the interviews that he gives in that's included in the supplements. It's really great, by the way. And so along the way, as I say, there is much action, much chaos and mayhem, a lot of violence, a lot of bloodshed, and sometimes of the martial arts hand-to-hand combat variety, and other times of the sort of gunplay, gunfire and explosions and grenades and a kind of explosive combative battle on the other. And then sometimes we see our heroes in captivity, and how will they escape, if at all? And also the life and death stakes are quite high, because we realize that if there is the high risk and high chance and high probability, in fact, of not only being gravely injured, but also losing one's life. And so this is always the constant threat along the way. But what's so remarkable about Sammo Hung's work, Eastern Condors, is that it does seem to borrow and merge a lot of different elements in a very, I think, easy, balanced mix. As I mentioned, there are some moments of levity and comedy. There are some moments of a high dramatic stakes gravity. I mean, there's a subplot involving the possibility of a mole or a traitor in the midst, or perhaps more than one, who knows. And so there's a situation involving that. There's also a situation involving uh, someone who's a slightly older generation who seems to be or he seems to be on a sort of different plane of existence, as it were. Han Yor character and what is up with his character, and also there is a this great combination between Yun Bio and Sammo Hung, and they seem to form a real powerful duo who are trying to sort of team up in order to achieve a kind of collective benefit for all, namely a kind of a survival and also the prevention of the proliferation of these very dangerous weapons and the like. And really, things come to a head in this action war film, almost in some parts James Bond film, with these set pieces that seem like something out of like a Ken Adam "You Only Live Twice" set on the one hand, and also some real life death stakes and some scenes and setups that are maybe paralleled after, for instance, some scenes involving prisoners of war and captives, and some really scary stakes of Russian roulette, which have similar eerie vibes as I mentioned, a film like The Deer Hunter, or the idea of infiltrating enemy lines or enemy encampments and trying to destroy certain strategic bases or bridges, and perhaps there's also this idea of sacrifice, especially when one realizes that one is gravely injured and there's no hope except for one last stand, as it were. So there's a sense of which is, I think, in the very great war action films, a sense of heroism and battle, and also the prowess of the technical feat involved in a lot of the action set pieces. So this is too in terms of the control of the stunts, and there are a lot of explosive stunts here. I mean, there's one stunt involving the back of a truck with a number of soldiers and some weapons there, and then there's grenades that are landing in the bed of the truck, and there's a huge explosion, as well as jumping from a high height all the way down into the truck, and that's just one example of these really incredible death-defying stunts that involve a high degree of pyrotechnics and delivered really, really skillfully. And also the martial arts prowess, as I mentioned, the hand-to-hand combat, and you really feel the kicks, and there are moments when you see the kick to the chin, and you really feel it, or the twisting of the elbow as they're. I mean, it's no holds barred stuff. It's very intense indeed, and it's a testament to how skillfully the actors and the choreographers and the stunt choreographers and the like really came together to commit to this. It's quite fantastic. And two, there are elements of nuanced complexity. I mean, especially in the beginning, this sort of interesting, maybe uneasy alliance with outside U.S. military interventionist forces, etc. Or there's this camaraderie between and among the group, and also between and among, say, the village community and the guerrilla fighters that we meet, played by Joyce Godenzi and others. And so there's this interplay, and also the sort of, exchanges and dialogues that we have, sometimes playful, sometimes maybe at times, not often, but every once in a while, somewhat on the playful, maybe somewhat flirtatious side, but then always coming around to the gravity of the situation, which is quite grave and quite severe, and it's also pushed along by the real effective performances. I mean, Corey Yoon and Yun Ping, they are the choreographers here, and they also deliver great performances, really great. I mean, there are some showstopper moments in this, and that they involve this ensemble, including those two performances. And I must say too, Yuen Biao and Sammo Hung, they are also like a kind of dynamic duo. It's unbelievable the stuff that they pull off. I mean, they are legends for a reason, and they each have their own slightly different style. Yuen Biao has a maybe more acrobatic tendency, or acrobatic inclination to a lot of his stunts. It's really quite fantastic. And then Sammo Hung has this rugged, earthy style that is also very skilled. Um, and he also too has a share of high jumps and attacks there, so it's incredible. And the battles that are committed to film here are showstoppers in and of themselves. I mean, a lot of the things they are so wildly inventive on the one hand. Also, there's this kind of I don't want to say grounded in reality per se, but there is a way in which you can feel the logic of the scenes and the progression, and you can get a sense of not only you feel the logic and the progression of the scenes, which is excellent by the way, and you can also feel the hurt and the pain. And a lot of the great action films are so great for many reasons. One of which is you can feel the consequences. You can feel it when a punch lands and it hurts, or you can feel it when a character feels the sting of a wound or something like that. I mean, it's that kind of power that is at play here, while being very playful and very almost whimsical in terms of its passages through the plot development through the film. And that's one of the hallmarks, I think, of great Hong Kong action cinema. And so it's definitely here in many great helpings. So all in all, this is a wonderful addition to the Criterion Collection physical media catalog, and it's a wonderful reminder of the prowess of people like Yuan Biao and Sammo Hung, who I mean, uh, and just the look of their characters, I mean, just looks great. Absolutely looks fantastic, and the struggles, and you feel the sweat and it's these are human beings with extraordinary talents and skills, but they're also human beings who also can be hurt, they can bleed, and also, therefore, by extension, they can possibly be severely damaged and also perhaps get killed as well. So, as I say, the life and death stakes are utterly felt, and that's, I think, a great hallmark of very compelling action. Um, and a lot to be learned and gleaned from this with this really great Criterion release. So it's wonderful to see everything and all the elements in action and at play in this, as I say, action adventure, martial arts, war epic extravaganza. Very suspenseful, very entertaining indeed, and is this work, which is Eastern Condors. The Criterion Collection has released this film in English known as Eastern Condors, courtesy of this single disc Blu-ray release from Criterion at spine number 1244. This on this occasion of December 2024, and I think yes, as far as I understand it, this will be the last spine numbered release from Criterion this year, 2024, and it's great to it's ending on such a high. And I mean, all around, I would say, a lot of high notes over the year, but this is another high note indeed. I enjoyed this immensely. But this is yes, spine number 1244. This is a Blu-ray disc purported to be based on a 2K digital restoration with uncompressed monaural soundtrack, and I've also removed the fold-out poster insert type, and I've unfolded here for purposes of this video discussion. I'm going to say it again. I'm not at all a fan of the fold-out poster type. I like the poster art, don't get me wrong, but it's somewhat unwieldy, and I much rather prefer the staple booklet or the glue-bound booklet type than the fold-out poster. But okay, that's okay. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. But a very minor point. But I've taken the liberty of removing it prior to starting the recording of this video, because I wanted to take note about what it says about the master. And it's written here on the right-hand side of the back here, and it says, and I quote, "About the master, Eastern Condors is presented in the original aspect ratio of 2.39 to 1. This 2K master was created from the 35mm original camera negative. The original monaural Cantonese soundtrack was assembled from the original Cantonese dialogue. Music and effects stems by collectors dedicated to the proper presentation of Hong Kong cinema. Those collectors also provided the missing English and Vietnamese dialogue elements from their holdings and, with director Sammo Hung's approval, re-edited one line of English dialogue to make it comprehensible. That's a very good note indeed. I'm very very happy to hear this. So, my experience with this film is admittedly very rather limited. So, but I have seen the film before. I'm not of the level of expertise as say some of these collectors of Hong Kong cinema, who have, among other things, helped to contribute to what we have in terms of Eastern Condors here for purposes of release, and now for the Criterion release for North American territories. But um, yeah, I'm very happy that it looks and sounds this way. And we also have, we'll talk a bit later, two versions of this. Another version, which is its own separate entry in the disc, which is known as the sort of English language export version. So that's wonderful to have. So again, based on my own limited capacity with this film, I've seen it before, but I remember when I saw it before, it wasn't. I mean, it was, I think, very good video quality or image quality, and I have no complaints. But this to me looks much better, and it sounds much better, and it's quite a stunning. And enthralling experience indeed to watch, and so to have this to be made available, I think is really wonderful news indeed. So, all in all, I enjoyed this presentation extremely, very, very much. So now what I've done is I've put the Blu-ray disc of Eastern Condors into the machine over my shoulder here, and it is a one of these moving image montage Blu-ray menus with some clips from the film with Eastern Condors overlapping the image with a great soundtrack to boot. So it's very, very cool indeed. Again, I'm very, very sorry. I don't want to offend the YouTube copyright gods. So just in case, I'm just going to block the image as it appears on this YouTube channel video. So I'm very, very sorry about that. I hope you can forgive me for my lack of video quality etiquette. But I hope you can understand. But it's a really quite stark number of images. There's actually one image that involves a very famous sequence involving Sammo Hung and a makeshift weapon that his character creates out of a long stemmed leaf and a stem that acts like a little arrow, a projectile. So very, very effective indeed. But there are so many supplements that we can talk about. But let's first go to one of the key ones, which is the commentary track. And this is a Tony Raines commentary track. So this is great to hear Tony Raines talking about a great example of Hong Kong cinema, or let alone any film for that matter. So it's great to hear a new Tony Raines commentary track, which is what we have here. Criterion ends the year very strongly with a release that includes a track from 2024. That's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And it says, this commentary track recorded in 2024 features critic Tony Raines. This is my first time listening to this commentary track while watching the film. It's a remarkable, I mean, it's another remarkable track. Anyone who knows Tony Raines and his expertise, he is a scholar, he is a historian, he is a film fan, a very, very passionate film fan, and so articulate and so well spoken. Listen to his voice as he talks so profoundly about a number of these works, including now Eastern Condors. It's really quite amazing. He talks a little bit about the way in which this was created under the auspices of Golden Harvest and also Bohe Productions, and then shooting in Canada in some locations, also in the Philippines and other locations. And actually, there's a moment towards the end. I don't want to get into too many details for the benefit of those who have not yet seen this excellent film, so I'll try to keep the spoilers out of my discussion. But there's a lot of explosions, and there's a point where Tony Raines, I think half jokingly, but perhaps the other half quite seriously, posits in his commentary whether or not the explosions were of such a high degree that they damaged part of the countryside of the Philippines. And so it's, I mean, it's that grand a spectacle, really quite amazing. So, and there's also, it talks about the whole setup of the convicts being assembled for this maybe high stakes mission that is almost certainly going to result in the death of nearly all, if not all, of the people. So that's part of the Dirty Dozen war film aspect of this. And he also mentions the Dirty Dozen here as well. And he also mentions too how that there are, as I tried to allude to, but the Tony Raines mentions much better than I could, which is there are some hints about U.S. Foreign relations, and also this film is a Hong Kong film about Vietnam, and so this was. This was something that had maybe not wasn't the most prevalent subject matter when it came to Hong Kong cinema of the time, the mid to late '80s. But it was something that had been a part of, say, the cinema landscape. I mentioned, as Tony Raines mentions, for example, films like Andre's Boat People, As It's Known in English, or other films such as I mentioned, The Deer Hunter, The Dirty Dozen. Also, there's some references to the Deer Hunter Chimino, and also references to Peckinpah war films and Western films, the way in which children play a role that might be said to be quite amoral or maybe even immoral. And so there are some really key moments in the film, Eastern Condors, that involve children in these incredibly distressing life or death stakes. And so that's an interesting comment that he makes somewhat later in the commentary track about possible connections or spiritual connections with, say, Sam Peckinpah. And also, Tony Raines speaks about Hang Nyor and the actor who's very in roles like films such as The Killing Field, who has a very, very key role here. And also to Yuen Biao and Sammo Hung and their close working relationship as shown through this film, and they have unique distinct styles that have some similar overlap that might be revealing of their similar backgrounds growing up and training and martial arts and Peking opera experience, but then also a different set of expertise. As I mentioned, Sammo has this overall sense of the choreography and the stunt style and the hand-to-hand combat aspect of it and the death-defying stunts. And then Yuen Biao has this flying through the air acrobatic style. And as well, so that it's interesting too. Like each has their own unique fighting style, which I always found very cool, and I love Tony Raines' description of it. And two, this is a really interesting overlap in terms of a war film that's action adventure martial arts film. And what Tony Raines he makes a great comment, which is it's oftentimes the case with the Hong Kong martial arts films that the story will try to come up with some reason to avoid using guns. One of the things about martial arts films is that if guns are introduced into the plot, then that might make the plausibility of the martial arts fight scenes, the hand-to-hand combat scenes, somewhat difficult to swallow. Because the conflict could be resolved by use of threat or actual use of the firearm, and thus negating the need for hand-to-hand combat a la martial arts fight scenes. So there are always these martial arts film examples in Hong Kong that would try to avoid the use of guns. I mean, you have this maybe setting it in a setting where or a period of time where guns weren't invented yet, or maybe having some kind of plot aspect that would remove guns from the equation. Think about Bruce Lee is also mentioned here in this commentary. So think about how that's done in work like Enter the Dragon, or even The Way of the Dragon, which is the film that Bruce Lee directed. Set in modern day Rome, Italy. So, but here, what makes this film very interesting in that regard or in that context, I mean, there are martial arts set pieces to it, and there are hand-to-hand combat fight scenes to it, but there are also these explosions and gun battles as well. And so this is a film which seems to merge the two, the sort of gun-based action spectacle, based upon the weaponry of warfare. And then also the spectacle of martial arts hand-to-hand combat. And there are so many, and especially at the climax of the film, I mean, it goes into this high voltage, high octane martial arts climax, which is so stunning. It's amazing, involving things like dabbing the face with a handkerchief for sweat, and also a fan that's used. It's just held in the back of the neck, and then the steel bars of the complex in which they're fighting. Again, it's like a Ken Adam set from a James Bond film from the 1960s, and so. Oh, it's so great, absolutely great. So it's a great mix of these various, say, genres as approaches, as Tony Raines, I think, really astutely comments on. And two, Tony Raines takes the opportunity to talk a little bit about his own entry point into the world of Hong Kong cinema, how he first got introduced to Hong Kong cinema, and also the stages of Hong Kong cinema that led to its prominence and popularity, and kind of system of making films which have certain similarities but also differences with, say, Hollywood cinema. I mean, on the one hand, as Tony Raines mentions, there is the method by which things are shot. The camera is set up, and maybe it doesn't rely on films like Eastern Condors doesn't rely on, say, the long shot or the medium shot per se, but rather shooting what is necessary for the total assemblage of the sequence that's being planned. So this, as Tony Rand suggests, could be one of the hallmarks that sets Hong Kong cinema, from a general perspective, apart from say the general standard way of doing things, say, under the Hollywood movie making machine. But also there are some similarities in terms of how it could be said that Hong Kong cinema might be said to be borrowing a lot from Hollywood films. Borrowing could be with or without air quotes around the word, but Tony Raines does a really great job in explaining what the tradition of this is in Hollywood cinema, and also how it affects one's viewing of, or potentially affects one's viewing of Eastern Condors, because there are a lot of aspects of it that I mentioned before, that Tony Raines also mentions here much better than I could, about how there are a lot of things that seem to be borrowed or lifted and adapted or inspired from other films from, say, Hollywood or the United States, etc., but done in its own Sammo Hung way and style. So, but in any event, that's a really interesting overview of that aspect of Hong Kong cinema, 1980s Hong Kong cinema in particular. And also he speaks about his own experiences and learning more about Hong Kong cinema, and he has great knowledge of the great performers such as Yuan Biu and Sammo Hung, and speaking about to some of the personal backstage or behind the scenes aspects of Sammo Hung's performance here, and also his personal life. There are some details revolving his personal life that have direct relevance to Sammo Hung's to this film Eastern Condors. As Tony Raines mentioned, Sammo Hung will, after this film, will marry one of his co-stars from this film. So that's in. But in any event, what was I saying? Oh, yes, and he talks about this film as a serious-minded war film. I really like that. There are some elements of comedy and levity that are played very, very well, but it's also very grave, very serious, and also very inventive, too. He makes note of some of the traits of the performances. The giggling general, for instance, the arrow made out of the leaf, and the like. And also, he gives a great quotation to his fellow scholar and friend David Wardwell about Hong Kong cinema, sort of the meaning of or the essence of Hong Kong cinema, the excitement and electricity of Hong Kong cinema as expressed in films like Eastern Condors, and also the performers that are involved with films like Eastern Condors, such as Sammo Hung, Kor Yun, or Mo Ping, or and others. And so, all in all, this is a really lovely and highly informative, highly detailed, and excellently delivered commentary track, as they all are from Tony Raines. Whenever you get a Tony Raines commentary track, you sit down and listen. It's filled with a lot. It's so great. So it's very compelling and really wonderful. So please, if you have the opportunity, if you're interested, please take the opportunity to watch the film and listen to the great commentary track by the one and the only Tony Raines, which is part of this Criterion release. Next, let us talk about the supplements that can be found together with this Criterion release of Eastern Condors. And so I still have the Blu-ray in the machine behind me over my shoulder. And so going next after the commentary track selection, you can go down one step in the Blu-ray menu to the supplements, the word supplements. And you can press it, and it says a number of supplements that appear. The first being the export version, and you press this and it says, this 2K restoration presents the alternate English dubbed cut of Eastern Condors that was created for international markets. And so it says 2K restoration. It also looks stunning. I'm very impressed with this. So this is approximately, according to the clock on the counter of the Blu-ray machine, when I play it, it's approximately 1 hour and 35 minutes. And so if you're looking for similar, yet there are some aspects I think are slightly different. Some scene, there maybe one scene in particular that I noticed was very like shaved, maybe like half a second or something from what we see in the Cantonese language cut that we have as the main attraction, the main feature of this Blu-ray release. But it's a wonderful opportunity to have it. And it's its own separate entry, rather than in terms of the versions, rather than not being capable of, let's say, using the same video or same video and then changing the audio soundtrack. It's not one of those situations. So you need to have it's a slightly different version, but different enough to sort of merit having its own separate entry, its own separate area on the disc. So the export version is here. So it's wonderful. So you have two versions of the film, and so I always like it when Criterion does this. The more versions one can pack into a package, the better. It really is a standout. So it's a wonderful. I do prefer maybe the Cantonese language version, although I do enjoy listening to the English dub very much. So that's available. It's the so-called export version. So please check that out if you can. And it's 2K. So next is Meet the Filmmakers. And this is one of those examples of the Meet the Filmmakers, a one-on-one interview with the filmmakers. This is with Sammo Hung, and it says, this 2024 interview profiles actor-director Sammo Hung. This is approximately 9 minutes, and he's sitting in a kind of movie theater setting, one-on-one. It's great to see him. He is now a kind of, as Tony Raines described him in the commentary track, now Sammo Hung, he was an action star who's in all these films, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Yuan Biao Ping collaborations, and his own director efforts and producer efforts. He had his hand in many, many aspects of cinema, stunt choreography, acting, fighting styles, and the like. And so now he is a kind of elder statesman of cinema and of Hong Kong cinema, and you really get that vibe. It's so cool to see him here, and he speaks very humbly about his life and his career as a stunt coordinator, as a choreographer, as an actor, as a director, as a producer, and many films that are referred to here. He had a hand in either in terms of martial arts choreography or producing or directing. Mr. Vampire films, or The Prodigal Son, which he mentions being one of his personal favorites of his career. Encounters of the Spooky Kind, My Lucky Stars, which, as I said, is also part of the Criterion Collection physical media catalog, in the Jackie Chan Emergence of the Superstar set. Also his participation in Ashes of Time, etc. And then films like Eastern Condors, and also other appearances like Enter the Dragon or something, for example. But he also talks too about how, and Tony Raines talks about this too, about one of the one of the physical traits of Sammo Hung that he uses in terms of his performances is sort of his physical appearance, and sort of the corpulent nature of his physical appearance. And so that is part of the acting performance on the one hand, and also too he mentions how, and also Tony Raines does, how he was on a very strict diet regimen for the purposes of his performance in Eastern Condors. And then he talks about his work with Yuan Biao and King Hu, and his career and his background in Peking opera, and how he ended up and the China Drama Academy, and like, and he looks back on his career, and as he says, he mentioned some of his favorites there, and Eastern Condors does come up in the conversation. So this is a really lovely conversation, a really great conversation with Sammo Hung. It's great, absolutely great. I mean, we're going to get more of his comments later on in the supplements, but this is a wonderful stop along the way. This is fantastic. So this is the Meet the Filmmakers section, one-on-one interview with Sammo Hung, approximately 9 minutes. So please check this out if you can, again, from 2024. Next is Evolution of a Legend. This is 2001. So it says, in this 2001 English language interview, actor-director Sammo Hung recounts his childhood years and his early career in the Hong Kong film industry. This is approximately 8 minutes, and much like some of the comments that he made in the Meet the Filmmaker section, he talks here about his life and growing up, a little bit of his biographical information, his childhood, and then how he ended up in the film industry, what were the circumstances. And he came up alongside his fellow, say, classmates, the people that he was studying and training with in Peking Opera and elsewhere. And then he ended up, because of his physical prowess and his skills as a sort of as a performer and dancer, and those wonderful physical attributes, he ended up becoming involved in stunts and stunt coordination, and he needed his group of stunt persons to be part of his troupe. It's kind of like a dance troupe, but a stunt troupe or stunt person troupe. And so that's how he worked with the people like Yuen Biao and Jackie Chan. And he said Jackie Chan went, of course, he went and established his own films and stunts, etc. But they did have some. They did come up together. They worked together, and so they have a shared common history. And Tu Sammo Hung speaks about the film industry writ large, and the Hong Kong film industry, and the style, and how working with the various directors in multiple capacities. As I say, he was a filmmaker of many hats, or is a filmmaker of many hats and many talents that he wears, oftentimes multiple ones simultaneously, and which is mentioned in one of the later interviews, by the way, with Yuen Wah, which is, as he mentions in his interview, which we'll talk about, who plays the giggling general in the film Eastern Condors. He says about how some stunt persons have great skills as stunt persons, but maybe they aren't trained as actors. And maybe some actors are really great actors, perhaps aren't trained as stunt persons. Well, Sammo Hung is someone who is trained as an actor and also trained as a stunt person. So he can do both at the same time. So that's an example where he has to think about the choreography as well as act and think about his own performance and the performance of others, etc. So he has to think about all these things all the time. So what a genius filmmaker. So in any event, Sammo Hung, just a one of a kind. That's great. So this is another introduction into Sammo Hung, the filmmaker perspective. In this, it's, what did I say? Approximately 8 minutes from 2001. And then continuing on, we have Sammo Hung on Eastern Condors. And this is also from 2001 in English, and it says, in this 2001 English language interview, actor-director Sammo Hung recalls his work on Eastern Condors. This is a bit longer. This is approximately 17 minutes. This is focused solely on Eastern Condors for the most part, or it is primarily on Eastern Condors. And talking about making this action-adventure war film. It's a war movie, and the subject, it's serious subject matter, as Tony Raines mentioned, serious-minded war film. And so he wanted to really give the subject matter the seriousness that it commanded, while also providing these action-adventure set pieces and martial arts spectacle that also is consistent with that mood and tone. I think he achieved that magnificently. And some of the stunts were quite difficult, and indeed training some of the actors and the performers, like Joyce Godenzi, for instance, there are moments, and he mentions too about how after the film, some years after the film, they married, but he says as he was directing her during the shooting of this, he really had to elicit a performance that was very physical at times, and it involved a lot of injury, and as he says, but he had to direct her as well as other performers as a director. But of course, keeping in mind safety concerns. But but the point I think he's making is you have to really put in their all. The actors really have to put in their all, and sometimes it can be very, very painful. But putting in their all, you can tell it comes out quite, and as he says too, for him too, he puts in his all, and sometimes throughout his career it involves broken arms, broken limbs, but he still does it. So it's quite amazing. And too, talking about working in the Philippines and talking about certain scenes involving explosions. There are a lot of explosions here, a lot of pyrotechnics. So there's some specific set pieces that he dissects and explains the background of. Also, there's a section which is called Leaves of Death. I always come back to this. It's one of my favorite scenes in the film. I love it. And there's something that he says too. I think also at the end of the other interview that he has here, which is he says he's like, I'm happy that you remember me, and thank you for. And I want to be loved. He is. It is such a wonderful, honest, and humble statement. He is involved in making films. He is involved in these entertainments because he wants to entertain. He wants to please his audiences, and if his audiences are happy, then he is happy. I mean, it's such a pure statement from this world-renowned cinema master. What a lovely statement this is. It just makes me so happy to listen to that. So. I certainly remember him, and I know many, 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 many people across the world do as well. And they will continue to do so for as long as these films are available. So anyway, this is, yes, his talk on Eastern Condors. It's, as I say, approximately, what did I say, 17 minutes? Did I say? Yes. Yes, 17 minutes. Next, we have Yunhua on Eastern Condors. So he is one of the actors who is in the film. He portrays the general, or the giggling general. He's kind of the ultimate bad guy in the film. And it says here, in this 2001 interview, actor Yunhua, who plays the giggling general, remembers the making of Eastern Condors. And so this is really cool. He talks about how he was in a lot of performances prior to his appearance in Eastern Condors, but the film Eastern Condors was the one that really was kind of like his breakthrough role, the one that a lot of people started to remember him by, and his role is kind of mysterious. People not necessarily knowing who he was or where he came from. And he says there were some audiences who thought that he was a martial artist from Japan, for instance. He had a really prolific career prior to Eastern Condors, but this was in as he describes, kind of a role that he became known for. I mean, I can definitely understand why he is very memorable, or he was considered very memorable. He is memorable. He's so great in this. So great, and his physicality is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And so he talks about some of the gestures, and he's so humble. He says, the gestures that his character is, the giggle, the laughter, and the dabbing with the handkerchief and the fan. He talks about how these were all directions from Sammo Hung, and so he says he gives credit to the director of this. So I thought that was really, really humble of him to do, really lovely. So he said there were some aspects that were quite demanding and quite difficult, and there's a fight, as I say, involving this huge sort of weapons complex where he has to fight with these stairs, with have these hard metal pole railings, and so with also hard concrete floors. So and also he says too about fighting. One of the difficult aspects is the point where you withdraw or pull the punch. It's important to show the illusion of a punch or a hit, but then of course you also want to avoid injuring your partner or injuring yourself, and so you don't really want to punch. So you have to go to the precise point where you maybe just barely make contact in order to show the illusion of actually making contact and forcing a hit. But you also don't want to injure your opponent or partner in the choreography by actually hitting them. So you want to withdraw just at the right moment. He says this is very difficult. This is also very physically demanding, and also it's something where there might be some injury along the way. But this is also so was it pulling or cutting it very, very close. This is in many ways one of the most difficult aspects of stunt choreography, stunt fighting, but he pulls it off very well. And indeed, you see the close-ups where there's so much physicality in his fights. It's really great. And he says to Sammo Hung was a workaholic. He worked like 24/7 in some instances. And he says too that Sammo Hung is one of those unique, one of those rare combinations of people who are talented as an actor and also talented as a stunt person and coordinator, and also directing the scenes at the same time. So he can do it all, he says. So Yunhwa's interview here is so humble, so lovely, and great comments all around. So this is approximately 8 minutes, so please check it out if you can. All right, not done yet. So many supplements. This is great. Next, we have Eastern Condors Live. What is this? This is filmed during the 1987 Miss Asia pageant. This live onstage event showcases actor-director Sammo Hung and others in an Eastern Condors-themed martial arts and stunt performance. This is approximately 13 minutes. This is unbelievable. I mean, it's a videotaped performance, live on stage. And then you have, as I say, it's kind of going along with some of the story aspects that remind one of Eastern Condors, complete with appearances from many of the actors, including Yunhwa and Joyce Gudenzi and others. And Yuen Biao and Sammo Hung, and you see them do the flips. It's amazing. I mean, I think there's a moment where it's actually, you see someone do a flip over people who are lying on the floor, on the stage. Flip, 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 like flip, flip. And then he stands and you see it's a close-up, and it's Yuen Hua, right? The giggling general himself. It's what the heck is this? This is amazing. And then you see also the wonderful prowess. Sammo Hung comes out and he does this great number, which is, I think, meant to mimic his trying to traverse the natural terrain of Vietnam while not getting caught. So he's tumbling on the floor and then getting up again and tumbling and turning. Oh, it's fantastic. And then Yuen Biao comes in and he does flips in the air. It's amazing. Absolutely. And then there's martial arts choreography. Joyce Gudenzi comes in and there's singing and as well. It's a kind of song and dance or song and martial arts number. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And then to see these performances on this, I mean, we know that these actors and these performers are really, really talented in acrobatics and stunts. You know this, but you see it live on stage as well. It's mind blowing, and it's so fun. It's so entertaining. 13 minutes of such a great time. And many of the people who appear in the film also make appearances here. So it's this all-around entertainment. That's really a lot of fun. So that's Eastern Condors Live! Exclamation point. So please check this out if you can. And then we have teaser and trailers, which has its own section. When you press it, you have a teaser and a theatrical trailer 1, theatrical trailer 2, and English trailer. And in fact, there's some, I think it's one of the trailers towards the end there, which actually has scenes that I don't think are in the film. That's interesting. And also there are some moments where you see the cast assembled and they're singing. It's so wonderful. That's great. So this is a lot of fun indeed. So we have we have the teaser and theatrical trailer 1, theatrical trailer 2, and the English trailer to round out this wide array, this large amount of supplements, including a commentary track. So and including an alternate version of the film. So this is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So I love the tenor and contour of the supplements. I love the content of what I hear in the commentary track. I love the wild inventiveness and the interviews, Sammo Hung comments, Yuan comments, and the live performance on stage. That's great. I had a lot of fun with this. So yes, please check out the supplements if you can. They're really great. Okay, so let us now turn our attention to some final aspects of this discussion, including the sort of the physical media component of this, the packaging and cover art. So look at this cover art. That's really cool. Look at that. Eastern Condors right there. And then we have a continuation of the font in the back with this in this plastic casing for the single disc. And you open it up and you have the Eastern Condors logo in English on the disc itself with a sort of fire, ball of sun flame fire as well for the disc, and also a picture here, which is, I think, taken from or we see the actual moving image part of this in some of the trailers, in fact, where they're looking at the camera and singing. And so that's great. And so let me now turn to the fold-out poster. And as I mentioned earlier, I wish this were a staple booklet, but oh well, that's okay. Very, very minor criticism. You have more of the great poster art from the cover art design. It says about the art here, excuse me, I quote, art director Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, illustrator Sam Hadley, designer Eric Skillman, art production coordinator William Breeze, print production artist Craig Phillips, and art assistant Julie Sussman. So that's great. I mean, kudos to the art. Very much enjoying this. And then Sean Gilman's collective action essay, which is part of the back here. This is a great, great essay. Really wonderful. Talking about Sammo Hung and the importance of Eastern Condors in the context of his filmography. Talking about some of the specifics of the film, breakdown of some specifics of the film itself. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Again, my strong suggestion is to please watch the film first, and then after that you can read the great essay that's included here on the back. So let me now turn. We'll put this in the tin here, like so, and just make sure everything is okay. Yes, and I'm closing it like so, and there we go. That is, in a nutshell, my thoughts about the Criterion release of Eastern Condors on this Blu-ray edition, single disc Blu-ray edition. It is great. It is packed. It's a tense film. It's a suspenseful film. It is an entertaining film. It's an action film. It's a war film. It's a Sammo Hung film. It's an epic Hong Kong film from Sammo Hung, one of the greats. It is Eastern Condors. All right, my dear friends. So that's it for now. And so there will be some more videos, not many. We're very, very close to the end of 2024. We'll have a few more videos to end the year. But if I am going to see, if I look forward to seeing you at those final videos to end 2024 on this channel. If you're interested, please come back anytime before those final days of 2024. But in any event, if I see you soon, or if I see you into 2025, please, I hope all is well, and the warmest regards to you during this season. And if I don't see you until the new year, happy New Year, my dear friends. But in any event, I look forward to seeing you again when you can. But in the meantime, please continue to be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including Eastern Condors, including other films by Sammo Hung, including other films in the Criterion Collection, and beyond. So until we see each other again, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.